Welcome to Doing Life Deliberately. My name is Trisha, and in this series on questions on homeschool curriculum, I help you know where and how to find the best homeschool curriculum, tell you how to find out your state's homeschool laws, and give you curriculum reviews. Today's video is all about troubleshooting your curriculum. So one of the challenges of homeschooling is when you get that curriculum in your hands and you begin to use it, oftentimes you will find that something is just not quite working for you. And you have the challenge of trying to figure out what exactly is the problem and how do we correct it. So what I want to do for you today is just give you some ideas, maybe some different tips and tricks that you can try to see if you can adapt your homeschool curriculum to work better for you. And if all else fails, the last resort is replacing your homeschool curriculum with something else. But what we want to do first is to try to troubleshoot it and see if there's a way that we can adapt it before we have to hit that last resort. One problem that you could possibly encounter with your curriculum is that the curriculum is too long. The daily lessons can be frustrating to the kids because it just takes so long to complete. And I have found this to be especially true with math curriculums. So one of the ways that we have tried to counteract that problem is to maybe do every other problem. On even days, I'll have the kids do the even problems. On odd days, I'll have the kids do the odd problems. Another thing that we've done is maybe cut the lesson in half and do the first half one day and the second half another day. Another thing you may want to try is just cutting out a section of the schoolwork altogether. It really just depends on what kind of curriculum you're doing and what works best for your family. Maybe you want to give each of those a try, but take a long lesson and shorten it down. The second problem you may encounter is that the lessons are boring. And when you start having bored children, then things can just kind of train wreck from there. So what you want to do is try several different ways to make the schoolwork more enjoyable. An example of this for us is I have found that most of my kids are not terribly interested in history. And so one of the ways that we tried to combat this is instead of approaching history by reading overviews of history, which can be kind of boring, especially if you're not into history, is to read biographies. And so by studying the same events, but studying it through the eyes of someone who was there and who was a part of it, it made it way more interesting, way more relatable for the kids. It took something that was boring and it made them something that they could kind of get excited about because they could see how this particular person interacted in that event specifically. I think it made it more real for them. And so that's one way that we tried to take something that was boring and make it more interesting. Another thing that I've found is with history, we were doing a lot of narrations. So I would read to them, and then the kids would have to write down a few sentences or a paragraph or two, writing down what they heard me read to them. It's a good way to solidify what they've heard, and you can kind of see what their comprehension is by reading what they've narrated. So the narrations are fine once in a while, but to do those every single day, again, made history boring. And so a way that we combated that was I had them do different activities where they're still writing, but it was more fun. So for example, we made timelines. I had the kids take several pages of paper and tape them together and write out a timeline of the American Revolution. And what I had them do is then use their artistic skills and draw pictures through the timeline of different events. And then they'd have to give a sentence or so underneath each of those pictures explaining what it was. Just being able to draw made it more interesting specifically for my girls. But another way that we've done that is I had them make a paper quilt And so they would have a block that was a picture, a plain block, and another block that was a picture, and just kind of stagger that through. And basically they put together several pieces of paper and they made a quilt and they drew pictures of what they were hearing. They could write a caption underneath, but it was way more fun for them because they got to envision it in their head. They're still listening, they're still writing, but it was just a little more interesting for them. Another thing we did was lap books where you can make flaps. They can make stuff that pops out, and you just take a manila file folder or a colored file folder, and you can even bend them together and paste them together and lay them all out. And basically it's just taking that information. They get to cut, they get to glue, they get to write things down, but that takes on a little bit more interest to them because they're being a little more active. So take a boring subject and do something fun with it. They can still do their writing, they can still do drawing, but they're doing something that's a little more fun for them. Other ideas of things you can do to make a subject more interesting is take field trips. Find documentaries on Amazon Prime or on Netflix. Rent documentaries from the library. You can do that for free by borrowing stuff. And if they don't have it at your particular library, look at interlibrary loan. You're sure to find something through that system. You can study it with friends. And if all else fails, if you've tried all those things and it's still not working for you, your kids are still bored to tears, you may want to consider switching curriculums. A third problem that you may encounter with homeschool curriculum is that the subject is just not in mom and dad's wheelhouse. And if your kids are getting to a point where they're struggling, this can be a challenge. So an example of this would be math. This is a common issue that parents will struggle with. Their kids get to 7th, 8th grade math and above, and it can just be difficult for mom and dad, especially if it's been forever since you've taken math, or if that just wasn't your strength to begin with. Having to help your kids can be frustrating to you and to them. And so now it's just even more complicated. So some ways that you can combat that are you can find a tutor. You can talk to a local high school math teacher or a local community college math teacher and ask them if they have any students that are really excelling that maybe they would recommend for a tutor. And that would be a low-cost way to help your student without mom and dad having to exert themselves and frustrate the situation even further. Another thing you can do is go to a tutoring center. There are plenty that you can pay for after-school tutoring centers. You can use Khan Academy videos. These are free videos that are online. They're listed by subject, and I'll put the link in the description box below for Khan Academy videos. You can use CD-ROMs. So an example of this would be if you're using Saxon Math, they have 2 different systems of CD-ROMs that you can use that will teach your children and possibly even go through the exact problems that are in the book. So those would be the Saxon Math teacher videos or the Dive CD-ROMs, and those can be purchased in addition to Saxon Math. If you're having problems with one curriculum, maybe buying a different curriculum that will explain it a different way. So that could possibly help. Another idea is use math manipulatives. These are things that the kids put in their hands. So we've had counting bears, or you can even use simple things at home like toothpicks or straws or pencils, things that the kids can put in their hands to group into different, maybe group into 10s or 5s or 3s or 4s to help them learn their times tables or division or even simple math subtraction and addition problems. Another possible problem that you may encounter is that the curriculum you have doesn't quite suit your child's learning style. And so what I'll do is I will put a link below in the description box where you can take a simple 5-minute assessment test online. It's completely free, and it will help you identify what your child's learning style is. So if you don't know, the 3 learning styles are audio, visual, and tactile or kinesthetic is another way of saying it. And some kids learn best by reading. They've got to have it in front of them to read on a piece of paper. Other kids will learn best by hearing. The instructions really need to be said out loud. They need to hear a book read to them to best understand and comprehend it. Or the third learning style is tactile or kinesthetic, where they really need to get their hands on something in order to be able to understand and remember it. So take that assessment if you're not already aware of what your child's learning style is. And then you can determine, is this curriculum meeting the needs of my child in their learning style, or do we really need to do something different? A lot of book curriculums will have CDs that read the curriculum out loud. If that's not available to you, maybe you can work out a system of reading out loud to your child, or having your child read out loud to themselves even. Another thing they can do is read out loud into maybe an iPhone or a simple audio recorder, and then they can listen to it later on and hear themselves read, and that will help them study. There are lots of different things that you can do to make curriculum work best for your child's learning style. And you want to give those a go after you've invested so much money into a curriculum. And if at the end of the day you've tried some different things and it's just not working for you, then switching curriculum may be your best bet. But those are some different things that you can do to adapt the curriculum to meet your child's learning style. Well, I hope that this video was helpful to you today. I would love to hear from you. By you sharing in the comments section below, you can help other Doing Life Deliberately subscribers to be more successful in adapting their curriculum to work for them as well. So please share in the comments section below. If you found this video to be helpful today, please give us a thumbs up and share us with your friends on Facebook and Instagram. We would love to get the word out about Doing Life Deliberately. Until next time, thank you so much for giving us a few moments of your time. We really do hope that we can be a blessing to you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks.